Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We really appreciate your support. And we also want to appreciate the importance of the media to help these important stories get out. Can't thank you enough. We are very excited to share some great news today that our doctor, Suha Abushamma, is home in Cleveland and will soon be back to work at Cleveland Clinic to help take care of our patients. Cleveland Clinic is committed to a highly diverse workforce and patient population, which is core to our culture and our nearly 100-year history. When we first learned that Suha's visa had been canceled, a broad team mobilized immediately to help with her return. You will hear more from them shortly. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple of ground rules here. We are going to hold questions until the very end, and Suha will be making a statement, but will probably not stay for the Q&A afterwards. And then after the news conference, the attorneys too will come up and answer any questions that you have. With that, I would like to introduce Dr. Abby Spencer. She is the director of Cleveland Clinic's internal medicine residency program that oversees 182 residents from all over the world.
Thank you. Thanks everybody who's here today with us. What an exciting and moving experience to be here. Not only do I speak for myself, but for our organization as well, that we are absolutely thrilled to have Dr. Suha Abushamma home safely back in Cleveland and back in our Cleveland Clinic family. What an emotional day yesterday, witnessing the looks of pure joy and hope as we watched each individual walk through immigration gates where we were waiting. It was surreal and powerful and deeply moving, and a real honor to be part of those moments for so many. But I'll tell you, when Suha walked out of those immigration doors, there was not a dry eye among us. And I sincerely hope that others in her situation will also come home very soon and very safely. Dr. Abushamma is currently a first-year resident who's training in our residency program within internal medicine. She was at the top of her class, heavily involved in community service and leadership, and she was a highly sought-after candidate. We were absolutely thrilled to match Suha into our program, and we're equally committed to continue to recruit talent such as her caliber from across the world with our upcoming match as well. During her time with us at Cleveland Clinic residency, Suha has proven to be an excellent physician with performance well above her level of training. She's known for the compassion that she shows her patients. Her enthusiasm to learn is constant, but more importantly, she's just a wonderful physician who's well on her way to doing more and more and even better things and greater things. When we learned of Dr. Abushamma's situation, there were many organizations that came together to help her get back home to Cleveland. We're so grateful to this team of exceptional lawyers who have been working tirelessly over the past week to make this happen. From David Leopold to Marlena, to Jennifer and Robert in New York City, to the unwavering support from CCF leadership, media, and protective services, and everybody just working round the clock tirelessly to bring Suha safely home. Thank goodness she had her Cleveland Clinic phone with her, making email, text, and phone communication with her seamless. In just a few minutes, you'll be hearing from many of the amazing individuals that worked on her case. But first, I'm truly most honored to introduce you to one of the most remarkable women I know, who's not only kind and caring and smart and dedicated as a physician, but an inspiration to so many of us, and a good friend to many of us here as well at the Cleveland Clinic. She is among the brightest, kindest, most humanistic, hardworking, resilient, and cheesecake-loving physicians that I know. Please welcome Dr. Suha Abushamma home.
Get already started.
First, let me start by saying how happy I am to be back here in Cleveland with my friends, my fiance, and all the people that I consider as part of my family. I missed everyone so much. I'm excited to continue my work here at the Cleveland Clinic, where I can focus on my medical career and most importantly, caring for my patients. I've always wanted to be a doctor, like my parents who are both doctors and internal medicine physicians. My 3 siblings are currently in medical school in Sudan. I chose training here in the United States because it's the best training in the world. And Cleveland Clinic stood out for me not only because it's a leading institution, but also because the clinic embraces diversity and considers residents from all over the world. I'm beyond grateful to the entire team of individuals who worked so hard on my case. I especially want to thank this special group of lawyers who put their time and energy into getting me back home. Also, my longtime friend and colleague, Dr. Farisal Kidder, who is a gastroenterology fellow here at the clinic, who helped me to meet his contact my legal team and to share my story. He's sitting right there. I'd personally like to thank Dr. Spencer for taking time away from family and work to meet me with JFK. Also, thank you to my fellow residents for their infinite support. I'd also like to thank Dr. Castro in the Cleveland Clinic. I'm beyond thankful for your support and never giving up on me. While this has been a challenge for me in many ways, today I'm feeling much gratitude and I'm looking forward to getting back to work and putting patients first. Thank you for being here today. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Suha. I'm so glad to have you. Now I'd like to introduce David Rowan, Cleveland Clinic's Chief Legal Officer, who's going to talk a little bit about what happened and how we got her back.
Thank you, Eileen, and thanks for all of you being here on this happy occasion for all of us at the Cleveland Clinic. I say the city of Cleveland and beyond. First, Dr. Abushama, on behalf of Dr. Cosgrove, the board of directors, and all administration, we're extremely happy to have you back. Dr. Cosgrove was able, he's out of town, but he's able to talk to Suha earlier today and express his admiration for what you've done, and great job. Now I'm going to relay a little story. Yesterday we had a regular board of directors meeting, which is our governing board of the Cleveland Clinic, and at that board meeting, Dr. Cosgrove started off the presentation by giving an update on Suha's situation. We knew that she had boarded a plane in Saudi Arabia. We knew that there'd been a lot of work behind the scenes, but we didn't know absolutely she'd be able to enter. And by the end of the meeting, Dr. Cosgrove was able to report that indeed she had entered the U.S. with the team that we had, and the board erupted in applause. And so I think that that was something that just shows the support you have from your colleagues, from administration. It's been an honor to work on this team with you. And I'd say that you've been a great client too, from a standpoint of listening, participating, and that's been a very important part of the message. Also, I'd say that the press, as Eileen said earlier, played a very important role here with regard to getting the story out. And in a situation like this, it was very important for that to happen. I think it was done very responsibly, and again, appreciation to everybody involved. With respect to the legal team, I'm going to let the people who worked on that, David Leopold, Jennifer Croman, Marlena Davis, and others, but let me also express the gratitude we have for the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Eastern District of New York. They were helpful in all the procedures we had to go through, and then also the Department of Homeland Security and others. Anything like this involves a large team. We can't thank everybody, but again, bottom line, we're happy to have you back. David?
Thank you, David, and good afternoon. My name is David Leopold. I've represented the Cleveland Clinic for the better part of the last 15, 20 years, more years than I want to admit. I practice immigration, visa, citizenship law here in Cleveland. And I've had the honor over the years of bringing in so many talented physicians, people of extraordinary ability, people who are doing amazing work here in Cleveland and around the country, and in all kinds of people from all walks of life. January 28th, I'm going to take you right to January 28th, we all woke up and we all saw what was going on in the airports. It was on CNN, it was on MSNBC, it was everywhere. People were backed up at the airports, people were getting deported, there had been a ban that had been put into place, and people from 7 countries, including Sudan, were being removed. I was working with a number of colleagues that day. Some of these colleagues were lawyers that filed the lawsuit in Brooklyn that early that morning and argued the case later in the evening, which led to the injunction. Around, I want to say around 3 p.m., I got a phone call from Janice Bianco, or a text, or an email, a communication. It's hard to put everything together. It's all a blur. But Janice reached out to me. Mind you, this was a Saturday. And the selflessness of Janice Bianco, the selflessness of others like Scott Smilowitz, showed me once again that this isn't just an institution or a healthcare facility. This is a family here. And this family came together like I've never seen before to bring back this amazing physician. A gentleman, a doctor here named Faris Al-Qadir, reached out to me later in the day with Suha's, Dr. Abushamma's phone number. I'm not going to call you Suha from here on in. And I asked him to have her text me. She was in detention at the JFK, and there's no way to communicate. So she texted me, and I want to read you the first text that I got from her. And this is at 5:30 p.m. Hi, David. This is Suha Abushamma, the doctor from Sudan held up at JFK! Exclamation mark. Now, think about that. That was an extremely tense situation. She was looking at being removed. Unbeknownst to her, she was looking at being removed. She knew, unbeknownst to her when she arrived in the United States, the poise, the good humor, the graciousness that Suha showed over the next several days, week plus, as we were going through some very difficult moments, up and down, will always stay with me. David Orr pointed out that she's a good client. She's the best. Dealing with somebody who just gives you the facts and is in good humor, despite all odds. Anyway, the rest of the afternoon was texting between myself and Suha. I got the information, I got the details. But I also knew that my colleagues in New York had filed a petition. And I also knew that the good people at Cleary, Conley, and Gottman in New York, who do amazing pro bono work, were on site and were ready to chip in. I reached out, and Jennifer Croman, who you hear from in a second, wasted no time, asked no questions in terms of, we all had seconds to go. She ran into court, filed on behalf of Suha, got the ball rolling. In the meantime, Suha and I are texting. Suha tells me the plane's going to leave. They want me on the plane. I don't have time. Suha, me to Suha. Tell them you have lawyers. Tell them you were filing a habeas. Tell them what you represented. They want me on the plane. 7:30 p.m. Tell them there's a hearing going on. Tell them the judge is going to hear this case. Please. I will. I did. They want me on the plane. 7:30 the hearing began. For the next hour, Suha was on the plane. Suha's plane was on U.S. soil, on the runway, or backed out. I don't remember the exact specifics. The judge banged down the gavel. Plane took off anyway. Sue and I kept texting. Not a word of anything other than thankfulness, gratitude in a situation like that. Not knowing at that point whether she was going to come back here. So then the Cleveland Clinic really went into high gear. It was 11 o'clock at night. I got a phone call from Dave Rowan. Wanted a briefing. He wanted to know what the next steps were. What could they do was the question. What can we do? How can we help? How can we support? The next morning, we had a meeting. David, Marlena Davis, others from the counselor's office. This happened over the next few days, and I got to say that the support from the Cleveland Clinic, who reached out immediately and made it clear that they were behind this, that they were behind this critical doctor, was an amazing source of encouragement to me, and I know to my colleague Jennifer, who will speak to in a second. All right. right, so this transpires, and I'm not going to go through the stays that happen over the next few days. What we saw in the last 72 hours was a window, and we grabbed it. And yesterday when Suha came off the plane and was in the airport, and we had cleared it through, we knew she was cleared, I did get a final text, which I think I need to read to you. It's actually worth the wait. Not the final text, but the most recent one. This is at Kennedy Airport. Yesterday afternoon, around 12 p.m. Hi, David. I'm out. I'm in front of the Dunkin' Donuts Express. Where are you? All right. So I knew she was home. I knew she was back. So that's kind of how it transpired. And you know, actually, I know, in light of the situation, this was very serious. These were tense moments. This was a tense, many, many days and hours. But when I saw Suha sitting there when I saw her hugging Abby, when I saw her hugging Marlena, when I saw her hugging Eileen, I knew, I remembered, again, why I went to law school, why I became a lawyer. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jennifer Croman, who, without whom none of this would have happened. Well, so.
Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Croman, and I am the Director of Pro Bono Practice at Cleary Gottlieb. Last Saturday, I, along with David and many lawyers around this country, watched as people poured into the United States and were being held at the airports. Cleary Gottlieb lawyers, along with many, many other lawyers, immediately deployed to JFK and to Dulles, where we have offices, to help those arriving who had been affected by the immigration order. At JFK, lawyers set up shop at a diner. They had their laptops, their cell phones, and not much else. That night, Cleary Gottlieb filed 4 federal lawsuits in the Eastern District of New York seeking to prevent the removal of 4 individuals who had been detained at JFK. Throughout that night, Saturday night, and into Sunday, 3 of our clients were released and reunited with waiting family members. Unfortunately, Dr. Abushama was sent back to Saudi Arabia. But that's not the end of the story. Last week, Cleary Gottlieb amended its lawsuit on behalf of Dr. Abushama, seeking her immediate return to the United States. As a result of her safe return here today, we intend later today to file a notice of dismissal in that lawsuit. The Cleary Pro Bono team is thrilled to have Suha home. And we are grateful to have had the opportunity to work alongside the Cleveland Clinic and David Leopold in this effort. And just one note on Suha being a wonderful client, and that's that I think residency prepared her to stay up all night. Because every time we sent her a text or an email seeking information, no matter what time of the night, we got an immediate response. Dr. Abushama, though, is one example of the many people who were affected by the recent immigration order. It is still unclear how many individuals are in similar situations and are not yet home. Many of these people have not had access to counsel. I want to remind those people and all of those that may be affected by the immigration order in the days, weeks, and months ahead that there is a strong network of exceptional nonprofit legal services organizations and law firm pro bono practices around this country. And we collectively stand ready to assist. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. That concludes the formal presentation. I don't know if there are questions from the media for the attorneys. Yes.
Are we interested in my history
because staying on the answer is better than I am.
Okay. Sure. So after the Seattle stay went into effect, it opened a window for those people who had not tried to come to the United States, but where the State Department had canceled their visas, and those visas were reinstated by the government. Dr. Suha stood in a different position because her visa was actually canceled. So the question was, what can we do about her canceled visa to ensure not only that she could enter the United States, but that once she was here, she would enter in the status she had had when she left so that she could return home at the clinic. So throughout that day and later, we worked with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the State Department had clarified that it would be able to give visa waivers for those people who had had their visas canceled, and that they could be admitted in the status that they had been in before their visas were canceled.
So her visa is no longer taken away.
Her visa was physically canceled the night that she was in New York before she was sent back. When somebody comes into the United States, they always need a visa. And what a visa is permission, for lack of a better way to put it, knock on the door of the United States. So what we arranged, in essence, was for her to come back without that visa. And what CBP, Customs and Border Protection, did in New York yesterday was admit her in H-1B classification, which is how she works. So you don't actually need a physical visa to be in the United States, because the visa, all a visa is permission to knock on the door. Once you're in, your period of authorized stay, your permission, if you will, to be in the United States is determined by the Department of Homeland Security. And when Suha came in yesterday, they gave her permission to be here in H-1B through the extent of what she had had before.
So is her position here now secure?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, she's here in proper immigrant status. I hesitate a little bit the word secure, but you know, she is here in proper non-immigrant visa status. That means she has a proper H-1B. She's properly employed. She's fine.
What is likely to happen if the president is successful in his appeal to the circuit court? Will she be deported?
No, she will not be deported.
Why?
Because she is in lawful classification, H-1B classification. So even if the stay does not remain in place, and you shouldn't be referring to the one on the Ninth Circuit,
Yes.
It will not affect Suha Abushamma's status, because she has been admitted to the United States and lawfully admitted by the Customs and Border Protection officials, going through all the screenings, all the vettings, everything. This happened before, and it happened again yesterday. And so it will not affect her status. Whatever happens in any of these lawsuits will not affect her visa status.
Is
If
this,
I dismiss her lawsuit, will this prevent people from being able to use her case to challenge the executive order?
There's another, Suha was also part of a class action that has not yet been certified, but is a class action that's pending in the Eastern District that remains alive and active. So her individual case was really brought on the specifics of her case, which was that she was removed after the judge had signed the order in that underlying class action case that said no one can be removed. So that case, which is the Darwish case, D-A-R-W-E-E-S-H, that's being pursued by the ACLU and others, remains an active case and provides an avenue for other people to continue to challenge the executive order.
I have a question, because there are at least 3 pieces of legislation that are looking at reforming the H-1B visa status. So if she's here under H-1B visa, what is to prevent her from losing her status if the legislations are passed?
Well, she's been admitted in a proper status, that's the rule. So any legislation would not affect people who are already here, presumably. I think what we have to remember is that, generally speaking, we have an outdated immigration system that needs to be updated. And I'm hoping that at least some of the takeaways from what's been going on over the last couple of weeks is that at some point, we'll consider updating the immigration. But in answer to your question, no. Any change in the law will not affect.
Is there anyone here from the Cleveland Clinic to give his position on what happened to his physician? And we'd like to hear what you think about the executive order that caused all of this to happen in the first place.
Hi. How are you, Mary?
I'm well, thank you. So,
thank you for asking that. This is a really complicated time, and I think in Cleveland Clinic, if you look around the room and look at our residents here, they're from all over the world, and we really embrace that diversity and the culture of our workforce and our patient population are from all over. We're trying to stay out of the politics of this and really focus on making sure that we're doing the right thing for our folks, our employees, our caregivers, our researchers, our residents, and our fellows who are very important to getting advancing patient care. So we're not taking a political stance at this point, but we are doing a lot of work behind the scenes to try to influence change.
Well, I do have another question, because even though you're trying to stay out of the politics, you are in the politics because of the letter that has over 1,500 signatories about your retreat or your fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago. What's the status of that?
Sure, happy to answer that. So Cleveland Clinic organized an event there through many of our very grateful donors about 8 years ago at Mar-a-Lago. That event was a gathering of grateful patients of ours who have generously donated to advance research in heart and vascular medicine. That event was scheduled there long before the election. At this time, we have no further commitments to hold any events at that facility, but we will hold our event there at the end of this month, which is very difficult to change at this time.
Are you all concerned, or is Clinic watching the progression of the legislation about the H-1B visas? Because one proposal would advantage people who have gone to school here already, but it would disadvantage people who are coming in.
We care deeply about our trainees, certainly. I'm not an attorney, so I would defer to our attorneys to answer that, but we are watching it very closely. We want to make sure that we do everything in our power to help.
was anyone's life put at risk because she was not allowed to re-enter the country when she had scheduled to do so?
She's a first-year resident, so there's a pretty significant team of physicians and caregivers here to support all of our patients.
For the attorneys, did you advise her not to leave the country again until this is all settled through the courts?
Not to get into specific attorney-client privilege, but I would say that anybody from any of the 7 countries is well advised to seek the advice of the attorney before leaving. I personally have been advising my clients not to depart to the United States. In lawful status, not to depart, because we have a fluid situation going on in the federal courts right now, and I'm very concerned about my clients. So my sense is that and again, nobody should act on anything I say here until they talk to an attorney, of course. But my preference for my clients is that they do not depart to the United States, or at least speak to an attorney carefully about the specific circumstances before they do depart.
And Dr. Abushama obviously has a very sunny outlook on everything. But can you describe for us kind of the turmoil that all of this has thrown her life into and what she's been through this last week or so, as she's been not sure if she'd be able to return and when?
Well, honestly, I didn't, I didn't hear turmoil. What Jennifer pointed out was we had somebody at the other end of the phone and the texting who was just who was just wanting to help and get her case out there and responsive. And as Jennifer pointed out, literally 24/7, literally 24/7. We were in such a situation, things were moving so quickly, that the goal was to get her back. The goal was to get her back, and we succeeded in that goal. And that's what we're really happy about today.
Question for you in regards to Dr. Suha. Resident or from Saudi Arabia, denied because of her passport coming through Sudan. Explain to us briefly how that all worked and why she could not just use her Saudi Arabia residency or citizenship to get back into the country.
Larry, that's a question we've all been asking in many of these cases. I don't want to get into the specifics of the executive order. Clearly, I've been speaking out to the media in other contexts and my opinions on it. I don't think this is the appropriate forum for that. But I will tell you that That is a really important issue. The way the executive order was drafted left a lot of questions, and that actually is one of them.
And I think in the lawsuit you guys mentioned that she was being held without food or water. Was that with 9 hours, I believe? Is that what the conditions were?
She had water. I mean, she had water. The text that I got was, I asked her, have you eaten? And there's no food. My understanding is that they did give her something to eat just before she got on the airplane after the evening and so on, but all day long now.
Eileen, Uber's CEO stepped down from Trump's advisory council, yet Dr. Cosgrove is still on it. Are there any, because of this situation, is he considering stepping down as well?
Thank you, Monica. You know, I think that's something that's been, certainly we've talked a lot about it, but at the end of the day, we have our CEO and our leadership who runs one of the largest healthcare systems in the United States, has a seat at the table at the highest level of government to give direct input to the government, specifically to the president. And I think that's an important opportunity for us to have, and to walk away from that, I don't know if that's going to do us any good.
Would Dr. Cosgrove bring this up as an area of concern, how it's affecting your employees?
A lot of things that we're not saying publicly, you can be assured that things are happening behind the scenes, so conversations are definitely happening.
Between the clinic and the government?
Well, Dr. Cosgrove's on his strategic and policy forum, and that's an important venue for him to have a voice at the table and to be able to express his concerns about a broad range of healthcare items, including how it impacts healthcare. Okay. Thank you very much. Bill, we'll stick around for a little while if you want to ask any additional questions, and thank you very much for being here. It's a very happy day for us, and we're very excited to have her back.